Welcome to the third annual GNC Live Well Liberty Mile, the fastest, hottest street race here in downtown Pittsburgh. Welcome everyone and the athletes, for everybody taking the time to be here today. We're going to have a great athlete question and answer. I want to mention just a couple quick facts about this race before introducing the race director, Patrice Matamoros. One of the top prize money races in the country for 1 mile, $25,000 for a 1 mile road race here at the GNC Live Well Liberty Mile. This is also the fourth stop on the Bring Back the Mile Grand Prix Tour, which is a series of races celebrating this iconic American distance. The mile is a really special race, not only around the country, but also here in Pittsburgh. It's really, truly America's distance, something that boys and girls run. You have the young kids, and a lot of the professional athletes have been part of the Summer Dreamers Academy program here in Pittsburgh, along with the race organizing committee. It's a race where 14-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 80-year-olds can run, really something for the entire family. And it's also a really special race because here we are going to be racing in downtown Pittsburgh on a Friday evening after the race, after the work week, where you'll be able to see all this take place and the incredible professional athletes racing down the streets of Pittsburgh at an incredibly fast clip. It is a fast and hot and exciting race. I'd like to introduce right now Patrice Matamoros. She's been at the helm of the organization for the last 6 years. The organizing committee spans multiple races throughout the year, including the Dick's Sporting Goods Marathon, Pittsburgh Marathon, and of course this weekend's GNC Live Well Liberty Mile, including a couple others throughout the rest of the year. So you can visit pittsburghmarathon.com for all of their activities and events for both the community and for the professional athletes. Patrice, come on up.
Thank you, Jordan. Sorry. Thank you, David. Thank you for coming today. There are a lot of things that go into making a race like this happen, and none of it would be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. We'd like to thank now GNC Live Well for stepping up to the plate and offering an incredible prize purse for the third year in a row. Not only do they offer an incredible prize purse, but they also offer incredible support of our team, and for that we want to thank them. The other thing that I'd like to do is thank Fleet Feet. Fleet Feet has been an incredible partner for us this year. Fleet Feet not only sponsored the event, they also sponsored over 120 kids in the Pittsburgh public school system in a program called Summer Dreamers. Through this, Fleet Feet was able to provide 120 pairs of running shoes and help offset some of the costs in getting the kids to the race, as well as medals and shirts, pizza parties, and busing to this event. It's a fantastic event. So the other person who's really responsible for stepping up to the plate in terms of heats is Dermatologists on Call. Dermatologists on Call have come to the table, and they're sponsoring a heat of the GNC Live Well Liberty Mile. We're very fortunate to have them on board. And lastly, but not least, the dogs. It goes to the dogs in one of our heats. We have the Animal Rescue League, who stepped up big time to help us this year in one of the heats, and they're sponsoring another heat of the GNC Liberty Live Well Mile. I'd also like to say, without the sponsors, we need to have athletes to make the best show in town, to make the best show in the country. We're really, really proud to have a really phenomenal field. We have America's best field, is what we think, and today I'd like to introduce our top 4 competitors. First, we have Heather Kemp. She is a reigning champion. Heather, would you like to stand up and come up? Heather has won the GNC Live Well Liberty Mile for the past 2 years. Will she do it again? We're about to find out. I also like to bring up Gabrielle Grunwald, who's also a team member with Heather on Team USA Minnesota. She has a record-setting pace also. Both have times of 4:21. Next, I'd like to bring up the men. I'd like to bring up Jordan McNamara. He has come from Oregon. He's also a runner-up for the Liberty Mile for the past 2 years. Will he win this race this week? And lastly, but not least, I'd like to bring up our silver medalist from the United States. We have Leo Manzano, who won the silver medal in London. Will he beat Jordan? Let's see. I'd like to bring up David to talk about some of the competitors and do some Q&A at this point in time. David, would you like to come back up?
Absolutely. Thank you. We're just going to take a moment and we're going to set up some chairs here and get comfortable for all the athletes for a little fun Q&A. All right, so we're going to go around the horn here and introduce some of these phenomenal athletes that we have here in Pittsburgh for the third GNC Live Well Liberty Mile. Starting on my left-hand side with Heather Kampf, the two-time defending champion here in Pittsburgh. And just a week earlier actually had an incredible race at the Ryan Shea Mile up in Michigan, running a 4:21:39, pretty fast course, but nonetheless, really incredible time. And to her left is also a teammate, as Patrice mentioned. They both compete for Team USA Minnesota, and Gabe Grunwald is the 2014 USA Indoor Champion at 3,000 meters. And she also, her personal best, the 4:21.3 at the Minnesota Mile, also has the distinction of being the fastest mile in Minnesota. So Gabe Grunwald, one of the fastest milers, especially on the track here in the U.S., so it's great to have her here in Pittsburgh. To her left, Jordan McNamara, also somebody that is very well known here to the streets of Pittsburgh, has the distinction, for better or worse, as being a two-time runner-up here in Pittsburgh, but we know that he's hoping to change that, but the race organizing committee did not make that too easy on him. He is coming off of some a little bit of an injury, but things are healthy now, but does have an incredible time of 3:52:42 is his personal best run last year in the UK. But of course his competition, Leo Manzano from Austin, Texas, coming off of not only an earlier USA Road Mile Championship title, but also winning the 2014 USA Outdoor National Championships in Sacramento, California this year, has a 3:50.64, the number 10 time all-time in the United States. So we want to welcome everybody here to Pittsburgh. Thank you guys for being here. And I'd like to start actually with the women. We have, not only are you guys both teammates in Minnesota, Gabe, very well known as an incredible track athlete. You've had some phenomenal road times as well. But Heather, for the last, gosh, we're going on 3 years now, we've labeled you as the queen of the road miles. Race after race after race, you continue to compete at a very high level on the roads. And love to just start with you and tell us your strategy going in the roads and what makes you so successful at road miles.
That is a very good question. I honestly haven't quite figured out what makes me different in the roads that gives me more success there. I think the biggest thing for me that I've told people before is that I love the road mile for the fact that you can see the finish line from a long way out. Jordan and I were discussing this yesterday, that it can be bad and good because you see it from a long way out and sometimes you want to kick early, or maybe you want to wait a little bit longer, but I feel like I've just figured out my timing pretty well. It's kind of that primal kid instinct of like, I can beat you from here to there, and you just kind of know, like, from here till the finish line, I know I can put everything I have out there. And that's just been my strategy, is to really trust that and don't think twice when you get that feeling, and go for it from there.
Now, Gabe, coming into this and knowing Heather incredibly well, both as friends, teammates, I'm sure you guys trained together quite a bit. What's going through your mind, whether it's things that you might be doing different in practice or just strategy-wise? What's it going to take to beat Heather here, who's been so successful in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't think there is a specific strategy in road miles. I think every single one is different. And Heather has done a really good job of being consistently at the front of these road miles. So for me, I know that it's gonna be a good race, and for my own self going into it, I know that I have to approach it a little bit differently than a track race. I think I tend to rely on some of the cues on the track, just, you know, coming off the bend, or 200, 300, 400, hearing the bell. All those things help me on the track and have been ingrained in my mind for like 10 plus years. And I still don't have that level of comfort on the roads. I'm still looking for those cues. So for me, every road mile I do, I'm trying to prime myself up a little bit better in the last 400 meters to use my energy over the last lap, like the last lap, but it's not the last lap. So it's a little bit different, but road miles are always a little bit, I think, a little more low-key, a little more fun, and so I don't have a specific strategy, to be honest. It's just, I run every race a little differently, and it's not a track race, but I think for me to be successful, I have to approach it a little bit more like a track race.
Now, Jordan, we talked about the fact that you're a two-time runner-up, but as the kids, you guys were out at one of the schools with the Summer Dreamers program yesterday, and apparently the kids also said, boy, you also lost to Heather. And apparently you're a runner-up to Heather as the two-time champ as well. How is it working with the kids? You've been part of the American Development Program here in Pittsburgh now over the course of the last year, and last year you did a lot with the kids programs. How does that motivate you coming into this race? Not only, of course, you would like to change this two-time runner-up status, but how do the kids play into it as well?
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things about this meet is the fact that we as professional athletes really get to go in and get our hands dirty within the community and hang out with these kids and just joke around and associate running at a high level with positivity, with fun, and hopefully something we aim to create an impression. We want to make this something that they look forward to, something that they enjoy, and hopefully create a lasting lifestyle type habit for the rest of their lives, you know. So for me, that's a motivation in itself. You know, I'm on the starting line and I see the kids behind me, we're giving them high fives and stuff like that. That's encouraging. And with regards to my runner-up finishes, I mean, the roads are different. It's a lot different than the track. Leo and I are both very, very similar in the fact that we're big kickers. And kicking requires a very, very precise knowledge of where you are and how far you have to go. And though there are markers that say 400, 200, and 100, there's a perception there. And especially on this course, I think from 600 meters out, you can see the finish. And I distinctly remember 2 years ago thinking, man, 300 meters ago, no, that's not 300. That's about 100 meters. I can sprint to there. And so, I mean, it's like going into a grocery store hungry. Your eyes can get bigger than your stomach. So you really have to kind of put those senses away and really just focus on the guys around you and playing the chess in the kick. You're playing roulette, and especially with a guy like Leo, who in my opinion is the fastest kicker in the world. I'm excited. I had a fantastic race 4 days ago where I won a race by 8/100s against a very good competition, closed my last 100 in 12.3, and I think if I can do that against this guy, we're going to put on a heck of a show, so I'm excited.
Now, Leo, as the 2012 Olympic silver medalist, the national titles, everything that comes with that, mentally, how do you prepare to overcome being kind of that top dog? And a lot of people always say that, boy, being an underdog sometimes can actually be easier going into a race. How have you dealt with everything that's come with being the Olympic silver medalist and the national titles, and how have you mentally prepared coming into a race that you've never raced here in Pittsburgh before against somebody who has the expertise of what it's like to race in the streets of Pittsburgh?
Yes, thank you, David. First of all, I think we have to take it back to the beginning of why it all first started, and that's the joy and the love of the sport. And even though there may be a lot of pressure, ultimately you have to go out there and you have to have fun and know that you are prepared through training and practice to go out there and do your best, and then hopefully be able to kick with one of the best, and hopefully come home victorious. Ultimately, I know it's going to be a very difficult race. Anytime, actually every time that I ran against Jordan, it's been a very tough race. So hopefully we can both go out there, enjoy the run, and we'll see what happens at the end.
Now, there's one special component to the GNC Live Well Liberty Mile is always these great big heads. Do we have those big heads on hand here? Let's see these and see how they actually compare to the athletes. There we go. We have Heather there, if you want to just pass these down. Got Gabe. So these great fan engagement pieces. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Do the big heads make you guys go any faster?
Yes, because
more out of fear than anything.
right, it's like the faster we run, the sooner that we won't have to see this anymore.
So as you're coming down downtown Pittsburgh here in the race, you're going to see a lot of these fans with the big heads cheering for you guys. It's a great component of what the organizing committee and Patrice and everybody else does here. It's always finding innovative ways to connect you guys with the community. Let's kind of change gears a little bit to the rest of your guys' season beyond GNC Live Well, and if you guys can kind of go around the horn and just what you guys are expecting for the rest of the 2014 season, where you guys might be, and where fans can continue to see you guys and cheer you guys on.
So after this Friday, I will be racing an 800 in Michigan for the Michigan Track Classic. Nick Willis is putting on a great meet out there. Last year it was just a men's mile, and now they're adding a women's 8. So it's exciting to have one more kind of almost local, at least stateside, opportunity to race an 8 on the track. And then after that, I will do the Michigan Mile, the Crim Mile, on August 22nd. And the Minnesota Mile again in Duluth on September 7th, and then possibly also the Fifth Avenue Mile if I'm still feeling good and I'm invited back.
Okay, I just want to bring up the big heads one more time because I didn't mean that. It's a little intimidating to see your face blown up on this, but I just wanted to point out that these weren't here when I was here 2 years ago, but I saw them last year, and I think one of the hardest things for events like this, when you bring in athletes who aren't necessarily local, it's hard to put a face to the name, and you see these people run by so fast, and you're like not sure who to cheer for, but I think this is awesome, and it's innovative, and I think it's really cool. You can see everyone's PRs on the back and our Twitter handles, and I think it's awesome, a way to connect us to the crowd, so I think it's really fun. But for me, coming up this season, I am not exactly sure. The life of a professional runner requires you to be flexible with your plans because sometimes they change. So I'm hoping to go back to Europe possibly and try to run a fast 1500, maybe a 2 mile in there, but I'd like to lower the season best in the 1500 if I get a chance to do that. But beyond that, I will return to the roads before wrapping up the season. I think I'll be at the Minnesota Mile up in Duluth, Minnesota, and probably will finish my season at the CVS 5K Championship, the Road 5K Championship. So.
Yep, for the rest of the season, I'm going to run the Falmouth Track Mile here on the 15th. I have the meet record there, and I know myself and a lot of guys are going to be going to take that sucker down, so that'll be that. And then from there, there's the second half of the European season. I missed the first half due to a foot injury, and I've been telling my agent and coach this whole year that, we've done some fantastic workouts during the spring. I was in great shape, and I was looking to run around 350 for a mile, and that's still the goal. So hopefully that'll happen, and then Fifth Avenue Mile, and then possibly a mile over in Hawaii to cap things off. A little bit of fun.
Well, after the Liberty Mile, I'm going to head back to Europe. As of now, I'm confirmed for 2 events, and that's in the Birmingham Emsley Car Mile, and then not too long after, it'll be the Brussels 1500. Hopefully, I'll have a race before the Birmingham Mile and in between the Brussels event, and hopefully we'll cap off my season sometime the 13th or 14th of September. So.
It's definitely full seasons for you guys still ahead. It's almost kind of like this is the beginning of the second half of your track and road racing season. So excited to have you guys here in Pittsburgh to make that happen. Do we have any questions out from the audience here?
I'm Ryan Lampa, and I'm the founder of Bring Back the Mile. I have a twofold question for athletes. First question is, at what age did you first find out about a mile as a storied distance? And the second question is, what was the mile race that you ran at any age that said, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I want to keep on being a runner, that this is my event?
Leo, why don't we start with you on your end this time?
So as of now, when I first found out about it was actually through Jim Ryan. I remember just hearing about him and how he was the fastest guy during his time. And so growing up, he was one of the guys that I looked up to. And then, I throughout my career, I'd always been a 1600, 1500 meter guy. But when I really fell in love with the mile was actually at the Emsley Car Mile in 2010, where it was one of the primary events in England. And after that race, I ran very well, ran 350.64, I believe. And after that, I just fell in love with it. So the mile is the event.
I'd say I first started to really consider the mile as a premier distance. I think it was 2001 when Alan Webb ran his incredible 353 in high school. That was such an incredible performance. Then he was so young. I at the time, I think my PR was in the 5 5:20-ish range. But I just saw him do it and I thought, man, that's incredible, why not me, kind of a thing. So that really spurred that forward.
I'm going to be honest, for me, the distinction between the 1600 and the mile was a little blurry during high school. I ran a lot of 1600s, a lot of 3200s, some 800s, but we would always, if I was running the 1600 or the 3200 that day, I'd say I was running the mile. Or I would say, well, you're doing the 2 mile today. So I think it was maybe towards the end of high school that I finally realized that 1600 is not, in fact, a mile. And so going into college, you know, you have all these barriers for the mile. I knew about the 4-minute mile and how that was important for men, but for women, it's a little bit different. Those barriers aren't necessarily as clear cut. But for high school girls, at least when I was running, a sub 5-minute mile is a big deal and sort of indicates, you know, that you're getting to that elite level. And that was a target for me in high school. Unfortunately, one that I never broke in high school. My 1600 PR was 5:08 when I graduated from high school. And so I walked down to the University of Minnesota, and one of the first, you know, things on my checklist, my coach and I, was we actually do run the mile indoors in college in the NCAA. And so I remember the first time that I did break 5 minutes of the mile. It was my freshman year, and I think it was at Iowa State. Yeah. So getting under that barrier just, you know, it opened my eyes to what the mile was, and also to the fact that, so you finally broke in 5 minutes, like what's the next step? Breaking 450, breaking 445, breaking 440, and now we're at the point where, you know, breaking sub 430 and getting close to that 420 mile is a really exciting thing. But it did take a while for me to understand what the mile was.
I would say I sort of have a similar story in the fact that we in high school called the 1600 the mile. But my first kind of love for it was just our FIED class. We'd have the fitness testing mile run, and I honestly don't know if we were running 16 or 1609 at that point either. But my primary goal was just to beat the boys, so it didn't really matter what time I was running. I was just trying to beat everyone. So that's sort of like my first memories of the mile is I would have our report cards, they would show our fitness testing times on there, and I would dig through my parents' file cabinets to look back at what I ran the year before I go and do it again. And that was before I didn't train for it. I think I maybe run once the week of, and then just go do it, and everything. So it wasn't until high school I still thought, like, why would I ever want to run in circles? So it was at that time that my gymnastics coach suggested I go out for running, and I really fell in love with the mile. And similarly, I didn't get to run the mile a lot in high school. I was a 200, 400, 800 kid, so a little bit more on the sprinting end of things. But before I went to college, I wanted to find out what I could do in a mile. So my then boyfriend, now husband, took me to our track at the high school we broke in, and I ran my first sub 5 mile with him pacing me, so that was pretty fun.
Great. Well, with the GNC Live Well Liberty Mile, got some big marks that they're going to be going for in terms of course records beyond the title. Heather Kemp, of course, has the course record from last year, 432. And Craig Miller in 2012 was 358.4. It's definitely a pretty fast course out here. Pittsburgh out in Pennsylvania, Steve Scott's run a 352.26, and Mary Decker ran a 423.49 back in the 80s. So some fast times have been run here on Pennsylvania soil as well for you guys to be going after. We're really excited to see all of you guys compete and do well. So best of luck to all of you tomorrow, and have a lot of fun. We know there's 4 of you here, but it's a pretty deep field. So please check out Twitter and Facebook and the websites for the GNC Live Well Liberty Mile to stay up to date on all the live coverage and everything going on, both here in the community with the kids in the schools that they're visiting, and also to get a sense of what things are like here on the day. And we hope to see you guys out there. Thank you.